Okay, welcome to my home in Maele Hever. You came probably from Jerusalem, which is way up north, about 35 kilometers from here. Further down, you went through Gush Etzion, and then you drove by Kiryat Arba Hevron, and we are now south of Kiryat Arba Hevron. But just above us to the north over there, you can see on the horizon a few houses. That is the edge of the village of Bani Naim. Bani Naim has about 20,000 residents as far as I remember. Now start looking a little bit to the east over here. You see the Judean desert. This is the view that sold us on our home. It's hazy today, but you can see, but beyond the haze are the hills of Moab and Ammon. And then, as I said, the Judean desert. Further down south over here, you have the Jewish village of Carmel. Beyond it, Ma'on, then Susia, then Beersheba, then Eilat, the South Pole. Keep on going. Let us go back here to the east, and let's recall a story from about 4,000 years ago. There was a gentleman by the name of Abram, and at the time Avram, his nephew Lot and he lived in this area. They were both shepherds, and their shepherds were fighting with each other. Avram said, Lot, why should we fight? We're brothers. Why don't you go anywhere you want? Go north, I'll go south. If you go east, I'll go west, whatever you want. So Lot looked out and saw the city of Sodom, which was beautiful, green, and luscious. And this was, of course, before God destroyed the city of Sodom. And that's where he went. And Abraham went back to where he was living in Hebron. But before he went back to Hebron, God appeared to him and said, Abraham, look up to the north, the south, the east, the west. This is the land that I'm going to promise to you and to your progeny forever. Between Hebron and Sodom, right here in my backyard, that's where it happened. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Anyway, don't stop yet.
Okay. But there's more.
Fast forward about 400 years, we come to another, we come to one of those descendants of Abraham. His name was David. He, of course, was from the tribe of Judah, and this is the land, the inheritance of Judah, the Judean desert. So this was like the backyard also of David, and he would frolic here when he was young, and when he would be escaping some of the people who were pursuing him, the Philistines, his son Absalom, his father-in-law Saul, he would hide in some of the caves, some of which you can see over here, over there. There's a cave. There are hundreds of caves over here. I say that he probably wrote some of the Psalms when he was influenced by the beautiful view that we have, a very inspiring view.
I'm just going to point out that
Yes.
Maale Hever, where you used to live, where we live, is actually on the northern edge of the Judean desert, near the border of Binyamin.
That's right.
And it's mentioned in Joshua. And of course in the Torah.
Yes, and I will point out, as I'm about to get to, David hung out also in Ein Gedi, which is right on the edge, the seashore, as it were, of the Dead Sea. And Ein Gedi is due east of us, about 10 kilometers due east here as the crow flies. Go a few hundred more years after King David, and you'll come to another leader of the Jewish people. After the first temple was destroyed, after the second temple was destroyed, an officer by the name of Bar Kokhba, Simon Bar Kokhba. He was the leader of the Jewish revolt.
No relation to Simon Bar Sinister from
No relation to Simon Bar Sinister.
Okay.
That's right.
Bullwinkle and Friends.
Oh, maybe. I don't know. I'll have to look into that. Thank you. Bar Kokhba was the leader of the Jewish revolt about the year 150, and he established his headquarters here in Nachal Hever, in the Hever Valley. That is why our community is called Maele Hever, because we overlook the Hever Valley. And that valley goes around these hills until it empties out into the Dead Sea. Mm-hmm. In one of those caves near or overlooking, actually in the valley of Hever, a very famous archaeologist found letters from Bar Kokhba. They were copies of letters that he sent. You know, when you're a big VIP, then you write letters, you make a copy of them, and then you send them so then people can find your whole archives of what you actually did with your life. And that is how they know that that was the headquarters, or at least one of the headquarters of Bar Kokhba, because they found letters that he wrote to different places, copies of them. One of those letters was written to the Jews of El Arub. On your way down here from Gush Etzion, you pass through an Arab village called El Arub. I remember going through that village, or next to that village, and saying, oh, El Arub, El Arab, so it's called El Arab because that's where the Arabs live. But instead, Bar Kokhba wrote a letter to the Jews of El Arub. He called it El Arabiya. Make sure that you get the 4 species, the etrog, the lulav, the hadas, and the arava, the palm frond, and the citrus fruit, and those other 2 things that I can never remember. The
Myrtle.
Pardon me?
Myrtle.
The myrtle and
Willow.
The willow. That's right. Because my soldiers need them for the upcoming holiday of Sukkot. Those are the 4 things that that the Bible prescribes that we take for the holiday.
Prescribes.
Prescribes?
Proscribe means the exact opposite.
Okay, so I'm used to my kids always saying
Pig
the
meat
exact
is
opposite.
proscribed.
Okay, prescribed.
Like a prescription that the doctor gives you.
I'll take that. That's fine. So the Bible commanded us that we take these these things, and Bar Kokhba was telling the Jews of El Arabiya, not the Arabs, but the Arava. The Arava, those willow leaves.
Mm-hmm.
Are what grew very well in that neighborhood, which is why they called it that. And so we see that Bar Kokhba was not only the chief of staff of the army in those days, but he was also the chief chaplain. He was making sure that everybody's getting all of their religious needs taken care of. Fast forward a few thousand years, almost 2,000 years, after Bar Kokhba unfortunately lost the Jewish revolt. And we come to the archaeologist who actually dug in the Nachal Hever, which I talked about. He's more famous for digging in another place called Masada, which we can't see from over here, but it's southeast of us. His name was Professor Yigael Yadin. And he, like I said, he dug in Masada, he dug in other places. He's also very famous for digging in the Bar Kokhba caves in the Hever Valley, in Nachal Hever. This archaeologist, Yigael Yadin, was not only an archaeologist, he had a day job also. He was the first chief of staff of the Israeli army. He was actually the second, but the first one didn't last too long. He was ill. So he's the person who found those letters of Bar Kokhba. Mm-hmm. What you have here is the last chief of staff of the Jewish army almost 2,000 years ago, just before the Jews go out to exile, basically writing a special delivery letter to the first chief of staff of the Israeli army almost 2,000 years ago. There you have
later.
It in my backyard, the chief of staff of the Israeli army, Bar Kokhba, King David, Abraham, and welcome to Maele Hever.
Ah, very nice.